Hi, I'm Dr. Amanda Crow, and I'm going to talk a little bit about setting financial goals today. Today, we are going to first lay down some rules of setting goals in general. We're going to talk a little bit about actually setting goals, what you should be thinking about and doing. We're going to talk about the types of goals that you should be setting, and then what type of financial goals a lot of people have. So when we come to setting financial goals, there are really three basic rules. If you're married or otherwise attached, you have a significant other, you have a girlfriend, a boyfriend, you live together, you must set goals together. This is not going to work if one of you sets goals and the other is not on the same page, or one of you sets goals and expects the other to follow suit. Finances are something that you must talk about, and you should be setting goals together. So that's rule number one. Second rule is to monitor your progress towards your goal often. Setting goals annually is simply not enough. When we set goals, you'll set at least 3 goals, but I do expect that you monitor your goals, monitor that progress, look at it weekly, look at it monthly to see how you are doing, in case you need to change what you're doing to reach that goal. And then finally, share those goals. Now, who you choose to share it with is completely up to you. You might share it with your significant other. You are going to, your mother, your father, your children, your best friend, whomever, but share it. Sharing your goals or making it public increases your chances of achieving that goal. Now that leads us to actually setting the goals. Now what I'm going to ask you to do is to set SMART financial goals. Now, SMART stands for specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. Okay? So when we think about specific, when you're setting a specific goal, it should include everything that you could really think of. No one should have any question about what that goal is. Measurable. Did you reach the goal or not? Attainable. Is it something that you can actually do? And when we talk about attainable, we'll jump into some of the examples that I provided for you. Then realistic. Again, is it something that can be done? If you're saying, I'm going to buy a flying car next week, well, that's not realistic. We don't even have flying cars yet, okay? And then timely. Timely should include a start date and an end date. The end date is most important. So I've got 3 examples here. The first is I will be financially stable. That's not specific. It's not measurable. It's attainable. It's realistic, and it's not timely. Now, why isn't it specific or measurable? Well, financially stable is a very subjective. What I think is financially stable may not be the same as what someone else believes to be financially stable. So you want to be specific. You want to define what financial stability looks like to you. If financial stability is paying all of your bills on time, then that's what you need to say. You have to be specific. And then you can measure, I did pay all of my bills on time, or I did not. My next example is I will pay off my home in 1 year. Now, that is specific, okay? It is measurable. Is it attainable? For most people, it is not, especially if you have a 30-year mortgage. And unless you hit the lottery, it's probably not attainable to pay off a home in 1 year. Last example is I will pay off my home in 10 years. Now, for some it may be attainable, for some it may not, but that's a lot more realistic, a lot more attainable for most people. And again, it is specific, it is measurable, you paid it off or you didn't, and it does have that time stamp attached to it, okay? So SMART goals, again, specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. As you set your goals, you should ask and go through each one of these. Is it specific? Are there any questions that anyone could have about that goal? Measurable. Can I determine once I've reached that goal? Attainable. Is it something that I can do in the time frame that I've set? Realistic. Is it something that can be done in general? And then have I set an end date? Now we'll get to the types of goals. And this really does tie in with those SMART goals. We're going to have 3 types of goals that you'll set. You'll set a short-term, an intermediate, and a long-term goal. Your short-term goal is going to be a year or less. Your intermediate is 2 to 5 years, and then your long-term goal is 5 years or more. So I have some examples to share of the types of goals that you will set in each category. So if you're talking about your short-term goal, which again is 1 year or less, you might set goals such as establishing an emergency fund. That's something that can be done within a year. Now, I didn't say completely funding that emergency fund, but just establishing it, getting it started, creating a budget. That's something that you can do within a year or less. Saving for vacation. Most people do that within a year or less. And then saving for Christmas gifts. Those are great examples of short-term goals. So these are things that you are going to want or need within the next year. Jumped ahead of myself. Next, we have your intermediate goal. That's your 2 to 5 year goal. And great examples of that would be save for a home down payment. Oftentimes, I find that people say, I want to buy a home, and they put that as a short-term goal. But the goal ends up not being attainable because you haven't saved for your down payment, for your closing costs, and things along those lines. So saving for a home down payment should be intermediate. Emergency fund is actually building it and funding it. Now, your emergency fund should be approximately 6 months of your income. So it should take 2 to 5 years, give or take, to fund it, completely fund it. Paying off credit cards, depending on how much credit card debt you have, would be a 2 to 5 year goal. And then buying a new car. If you're going to save to buy that new car and pay for it outright with cash, then probably about 2 to 5 years, potentially a long-term goal, depending on the type of car that you're going to buy. And then we'll finish with the long-term goals. That's your 5 years or more. So this would be building a retirement fund. This is something that you do over the course of your life. If you're 55 and you're planning to retire at 60, yikes, it might be a little bit late. But again, long-term goal, 5 years or more. Usually that's a 20-year goal, give or take. This also could include paying off a credit card, again, depending on how much debt you have. Paying off a mortgage, that's usually a 5 year or more goal. And then being debt-free, depending on how much debt you have, that would be a long-term goal as well. So I want to finish up with 10 financial goals that Americans generally have. Some people don't know what goals to set or where to start with setting financial goals. These are a great place to start. Now, remember, we're going to set SMART goals. So we're going to be specific. These are not SMART goals. These are general goals to kind of give you an idea of where to start. So one would be paying down debt. But remember, when you're setting a goal as such, you might say, I want to pay it off by this date, or I want to pay off these credit cards by this date. Okay? Remember to be specific. Save more money. Again, specific. How much money do you want to save? I want to save $5,000 by the end of the year. Be specific. Avoid further debt. Self-explanatory. Save for vacation. But remember to say how much you want to save for that vacation. Okay? Open a retirement account. That's a great one. If you don't have a retirement account and you're 20 or above, that probably should be one of your financial goals, to open that retirement account. And we'll talk about that later in another session, what you should be looking at, how much you should be saving for retirement, depending upon when you plan to retire. Buying or leasing a car, okay? Buying a home. Again, this is a goal that requires a bit of research because it's going to depend on what type of home or the price point of the home that you want to buy, and that will determine how much earnest money you need to put down, how much your down payment is going to be, as well as how much your closing costs are going to be. Okay. Next is starting a business. The top reason that businesses fail deals with undercapitalization, so not having enough money saved to start that business. The business runs out of money, the business closes. Okay. Next, save to have children, and then save for a wedding. So those are some places to start when you start setting goals. I'm looking forward to you sharing with me what your goals are and any questions that you have. Have a great day.